Hi, this is Amy Magyar at FromWithin Coaching, and today on CliftonStrengths Unpacked, we are unpacking the strength of communication. We have a guest with us, but as always, we always have Coach Augusta Goodcrawl. Thank you for being here. And then also with us,
Good
also from
morning.
FromWithin, is Coach LJ. So thank you both for being here.
Good morning. Good
Good
morning.
morning. Good morning. As always, this is a chance for us to share and talk a little bit about our strengths. LJ, because he is our guest, as you can assume, he has communication as his top 5. And it was so important for us to, during this whole series, bring in folks that have the strengths, because it's not just what Augusta and I have found with working with clients with things like communication, but also folks that have communication being able to come on and share their stories. And you can almost hear in even just how they share their stories, the strength coming through. So this is not in lieu of a coaching session with a strengths coach, but a chance for you to at least get a little bit better sense of if this is your strength, or maybe someone in your life has the strength, better sense of that. So that's what we're about. I've already heard myself talk way too much. This is not my show today. So let me just do this. I'm going to do the quick definition according to CliftonStrengths of communication. People strong in the communication theme generally find it easy to put their thoughts into words. They are good conversationalists and presenters. For me, when I think about communication, the words that I use is that there's an art in words, and they use the words as art. They're artistic with their words, but there's just this beautiful designing of words in the words that they've chosen to fit the best scenario or situation. And so I say the art of words. Augusta, what do you have for us? How would you define communication?
I love that. I also think it's very artistic in the way that it shows up. But for me, it was really about kind of the ability to help others make meaning of concepts or I don't know, of things, but with the use of description and metaphor and the art. But it's an art, but it also really clarifies and helps the person with communication make meaning, but also others make meaning of things.
Hence the fact that it's an influencing strength,
Absolutely.
right? And a
Yeah.
theme, absolutely. LJ, I saw your head shaking. What is you're like, hallelujah. What is your definition of communication, and where does it fall in your list of 5 for our viewers?
Okay. Hey, this is
Here we go.
the magic
Whoa.
sign. It's number 2,
Number 2.
communication.
Yeah.
For me, communication is indeed using words, and the best possible words
Yeah.
in a given situation to describe a situation, or to work with somebody, or to help somebody understand something.
Mm.
That's for me. I think, as you mentioned, Augusta, it's all about. It's almost the two of you combined. It's called a wordsmith.
Yes, wordsmith. Beautifully said. Yeah.
And it's not about him or herself, but it's all about. Okay, so I have somebody I work with, or opposite me at the table. And how can I, for instance, clarify things or help somebody understand things better? And then I also, that's what I came up with while we discussed this, and I saw this beautiful sign. It's also with me, then the individualization.
Yeah.
I think I'm able to really pinpoint and focus it to the one that I address or that addressed me.
Yes, that's a beautiful example of it's not just using communication, but it's having the other strengths enhance already communication. I'm going to go back to something that you said, which is it's not about me. So I think one of the things in its raw form that can happen with folks with communication is they may sound chatty, and they may sound like all they want to do is talk, and it may feel like maybe in its more raw or emerging form, they're talking about themselves. But I think really because it is an influencing theme, like you said, it's so much about helping people understand what is happening for them, or a situation or a story, or it's you use words to do this, right? To bring them in to an idea, or to a belief system or value. And so I think that was, you so beautifully said it, but I think I want to make sure we go back to it, because it is, for folks with communication, it's not about I want you to hear me. It's I want you to understand you, and I'm going to help you sort of dissect you with these with this language that maybe will resonate for you. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
and it's also, now that you mentioned this, it's also when, for example, when I work with a coachee, um, I don't know about you two, but it's all about at the moment also transferable skills.
Mm.
And people, when they don't have the ability or are not used to it, to say, okay, this is what I can do as I'm aware of. And how, and then they ask me, so what does it transfer to in
Yeah.
maybe a new world I would like to enter?
Sure.
And then I'm like in the middle, and I'm the translator to, okay,
Mm.
so this is
Boom.
what you do,
Bridge.
Yeah.
and this is what you could say. And it's not like we're gonna fake it until you make it. It's all about, it's another use of, it's a use of another word, but it's exactly the same. But it will
Yes.
be more precise and more understandable for the new role or the new industry you want to come into. Well, there you have it.
Mhm.
I just got so excited, Augusta, when he said translator, because it was
Yeah,
like, oh, right.
yeah. I saw bridge, that
Yeah.
beautiful, yeah, that thing in the middle that helps connect.
Yeah.
Yeah, helping me, if LJ was coaching me, or was my dad, or was a dear friend, which he is,
Mhm.
not my dad, but a friend,
Yeah.
is is needed to use my words carefully. Um, is that I may not understand something or see something, and you have a way of putting it in a way where I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, now I see it. I can see it clearly, or I can see the bridge, or I can understand the translation so
Yeah.
much better. So,
Yeah, that is a beautiful example, LJ. What comes to my mind when you're talking like that, not only you as a coach speaking to coachees, or, in your situation, but I think we can all think back to teachers that we've had that have been able to take a concept. I mean, I'm a science major, so I know some teachers I've had that have not had communication for sure in the hard sciences, but be able to really help you understand and bring it to life. Their
yeah,
words, their use of their
bring it to life.
ability
Yeah,
is is they can really paint pictures, that goes back to that artistic thing, but with their use of words. And what a gift. I don't know if you've ever been in a teaching role, LJ, in your past careers, but what a gift to have somebody who has this ability and who teaches.
Yeah, it's quite funny because within the CliftonStrengths, it's also they say people who have these communications strength are gifted or could be gifted teachers.
Hmm.
And the more it hasn't been my in my forefront, but
Hmm.
the more I think about it, I would be able to do so. But it's not something I'm like, let's
Yeah.
perceive this or
Yeah.
proceed with this. But I can understand. I had a very gifted history teacher, and he could tell me anything, and I was like,
right. Yeah.
"Bring me more, bring
Just
me
bring
more."
me. Yeah.
It was so. I fully understand when people say I didn't have the best of teachers because they didn't wake the flame.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
But that's how it is. I mean, it would be interesting to have a strength finders test with every upcoming teacher to
Mm.
see where the communication skills,
Yeah.
communication
Yeah.
strength is.
Yep.
Yeah, well, we talk about, how our strengths when we utilize them, when we're playing with them together, they give us energy. And that's what comes to my mind when I think of communication, is that energy that the person who has it gets when they do something like teach or paint with those words, or even present. Is, I think, people with communication are really, really good at getting in front of a crowd, or comfortable with being able to take these concepts and bring them to life and really get energized by that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me say this though. I think that the word teacher is an interesting word. My mother was a teacher of high school math. And I remember when she said to me one day, "You're going to make a really great teacher." And I said, "I don't want to be broke. I'm not going to become a teacher." But what she was saying was, almost in a different way, playing with words a little bit, is you're going to become an educator. You're going to become someone that shares. And LJ, you are an educator. Every time we're with you, we learn something new. You give us a new perspective. You show up. So you are a gifted educator or sharer of information. And if that's what the definition of a teacher is,
Absolutely.
that to me, that's what you are, and that's what you
Well
do.
said.
You just don't, you don't have to sell us on World War II history. Like, that's not, and that's okay, right? So I think that that's important for people who, like me, have this like adverse reaction to like, oh, K through 12, no way.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, let me just go on record and saying you people are saints. But it's not something that would fuel me. However, when we think about LJ and his ability to stand in the middle of a room unscripted and be able to tell a tale or bring a group together. And even though, especially with individualization, if you're in a room of, I've watched him do this, even with a room of like 100 people, he will still figure out a way to tailor that story to at least half of that group in some way so that it pulls them in. And the other half that maybe he couldn't tailor it to, there's a universalizable theme in there. And I think one of the things about communication is, it's that old story of how do you unite two people that couldn't be further apart? You have them share their stories. And I think part of influencing too is getting others to share their stories. So you understand, LJ, the importance of storytelling. So you not only do it to help people understand, but you get them to tell their story. And I think that that's an important part of communication as well, is that energy comes from the art of those words, whether it's yours or others coming at you.
Yeah, and it's also, that's what we do as coaches, is also give room to people and their story.
Yeah.
That's what we do, because that's where the healing begins, or where the progress starts. And because it's your story, and you can either neglect it or be negative about it, or you can see, hey, what did I learn? What did it bring me? And what can I do with it?
Yeah.
I'm going to say this, and this is one of my favorite parts. I'm actually going to let Augusta ask the question, but I'm going to lead her up to it so she knows what question to ask. LJ, you have to someday share with us a picture of when you were little, because I don't know if I have this like vision of LJ, but I just see him as like this energy orb, right?
Yeah.
So imagine yourself as a little boy, and Augusta, why don't you ask the question?
So the question, of course, is how do you see the strength showing up for you when you were little? Maybe young childhood, maybe high school.
I was, well, in hindsight, I would be very happy to have the knowledge of the strength finders and CliftonStrengths at that moment in time.
Yeah.
But I think I was always, well, I'm a very, positivity is my number one. I'm a very positive guy. And I always like to make fun. So I was also always on top of a crowd. Yeah. And come on, let's do this or let's do that. It's all, and what I also was able to do is like get people together.
Yeah. Yep.
So communication was then always for me, friends, doing activities together, rounding up everybody with words about, hey, come on, let's do this, although you don't feel like it, but we're gonna do this. And let's have some fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's a question. I know with working with some of the folks that I had as clients with communication, one of the things that has come up in their lives is being shushed.
Mm.
You know that term, LJ, shush, where it's like shh, right? Or
Stop
inside
talking.
voice, or okay, that's enough. Like what happens for you when you get shushed? And it maybe doesn't happen as much now as an adult, but as a child, what happened for you?
Well, that's a very good question. Because I think that has happened a lot in my life, in my youth. Well, what I do is I retract.
Yeah.
So I become silent, go to my naughty corner, so to say. And I'm like, oh, I did something wrong. Or, and that's more the case now, is I'm like, oh, you think so? Watch me doing this. So it's more like anti-authoritarianism. Like, oh, wait a minute. So it's, but I'm aware of
it hurt. It hurt when you were little, right? To sort of be shushed, because that's your, again, this beautiful example of you. If you had known your strengths at that age, you could have said, Mom, Dad, this actually fuels me. And I'm not just speaking to speak, right? But you know, we didn't know at the time. But you know, they were shushing you, saying, don't be you. And I think that's something that we have to be super careful about with our children, is when we see them light up and we see their energy. I just spent a week with two amazing little boys, and like I can kind of pick their strengths now because they literally shifted when they did something, and so to squash that, you know, and that's the idea of our strengths, of dialing them up and down, is to be able to teach and show. And maybe somebody could have taken you aside, LJ, and said, hey, make sure you're making a little space for this, or, you know, whatever, love what you're doing. Let's get some others to also tell their stories or something, you know, whatever it was. But the shushing is like, I mean, like death to somebody with communication.
Yeah, and it's not only shushing, but also I can, and it's not my own story, but when our oldest was in daycare here in the United States, he had a friend whose mother always said to him, not to my son, but to her son, stop asking me why all the time. And I was like, oh no.
Right.
It was,
killing natural curiosity.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing I've noticed in Augusta, I don't know if this has come up for you with folks with communication, is I had one client who she would hate to be misunderstood, even in a coaching session with me, where she'd say, well, no, that's not really right. It's more like this. No, it's more like this. She wanted to make sure that what she shared with me was so perfect. And I had to kind of remind her, I'm so grateful that you're trying to find the perfect way of saying it, but it's okay. It's okay that it's not perfect, because you're also discovering, you know. So as it was coming out of her mouth, she was sort of processing too. And I was like, it's okay that it's not coming out perfect. But she really did not want me to misunderstand her. So I don't know if that's something you've seen before.
Yeah, you know, I think that it, you know, with folks with the communication, I mean, just even talking about, you know, the importance of the connection that they might have to their words and where those insecurities might come from. But you know, what LJ was saying, that early kind of cutting of the natural talents that we have. And that's what's so exciting, you know, in working with our strengths, is you can really understand, you know, where they've shown up and where they've been allowed to show up, and how to lean more into that. And so it sounds like, you know, with communication, death, you know, a career where you're in an office by yourself and you're not collaborating and, you know, interacting and able to really bring these situations and concepts to life. That's what is super exciting to me when I work with somebody with communication, is helping them just see the beauty of that.
Absolutely. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
LJ, as a leader, where has communication, when it's been dialed up a little high, where has that maybe been a challenge for you? Or with some of the leaders that you've worked with, where does that become a challenge? Because you would think that having communication is a great thing as a leader. But again, what we know is sometimes when we get really excited, we dial up our strength a little much and it sort of becomes overwhelming.
Well, I think it's for me, um, it's about using all kinds of words that are filling up the room or the space, and not giving the other one the room to maneuver or to come towards me or even express him or herself.
Yes,
So
right.
it's more like, okay, let's go full in.
Yeah.
And I'm like, sorry, what did I do here? Sorry.
Right, right. The sort of metaphor of bull in a china shop is this idea of you're coming in with a lot of steam because you're excited.
Yeah.
However, remember, this is an influencing theme, and that the beauty of communication is getting others to share their stories or others to share what's happening for them. That's the power, right? So we know that you may want to, but also making sure maybe perhaps you're not the first one that shares, and you get others to share, and you still wind up sharing, but it's at the end
Yeah.
versus at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Which can be so empowering for people. Yeah.
Yeah, because of the power that is in the words and the enthusiasm.
Yeah.
You come in blazing, and
Yeah.
then it's like you blow away people, and they're like, I don't like you. What are you doing to me?
Right. This came up as I was doing research on this, is communication is not just a strength that shows up with people with extroversion. An introvert absolutely can have the art of words and communication. They may not show up as overtly. How they craft their words may be more in writing.
Yeah.
Or it may be, more tempered versus where LJ kind of shows up because he is an extrovert with positivity, is that there's an energy there and the energy needs to be released. That's how for him, I'm sorry, I'm talking like you're not here, you are here, but just, being able to sort of look in the microscope and be like, this is interesting. So I just want to say that because I think some of the folks that are introverts are like, I want to have communication. And it is an incredible gift to have that gift of words. But you absolutely can have it. You don't have to be an extrovert to have communication as a strength. It's just how it shows up for you. You may not go in front of a group and sort of talk to 1,000 people, which if I said that to LJ right now, hey LJ, I have 1,000 people I want to get you in front of in 2021, what would you say, LJ?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. And by the way, you're not going to know anything about the topic, and your answer is going to be,
I'm fine.
So I'll figure it out. And that probably just made half of the audience watching this like cringe. Oh my God.
Yeah.
But that is a great example of communication and positivity. I'll figure it out, and I'm going to figure out a way to connect people and stories and individualization. Would you hold your card up again just so we can see those? And really help, especially with relator too.
Relator,
I think one of the things that people forget about relator. So relator is this idea that you go deep with people, and it's assumed that you go deep with only a limited amount of people. But there is a relator where they go deep with everyone. And so when you think about all of these, and Wu is winning others over, I mean, he is designed to be on stage telling stories, inspiring people. So if that's not something you've done before, LJ, what a great opportunity. No, you have. You are amazing. But thank you. It's just really wild to see all of your 5 sort of work together. And it's those, as you say, Augusta, you call them the constellation of themes.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, that's such a good point, because how communication shows up really is dependent on not only your life experience, but I believe your other 4 strengths. And so you could have communication very high and be somebody who uses this artistic crafting and ability, but more in the written form. Yeah. So it's, it's just, that's the beauty. There's no people with that I've worked with the same top 5. I love seeing how strengths show up depending on, our other strengths.
So amazing.
Yeah. And then also other strength, other top 5s, but also another way of applying those.
Yeah.
That's what I like also. And that I'm like, oh, So I'm like a talkative guy. And as you say, there are girls and guys that do it written.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the same for all the other strengths.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
How they show up.
And so it's this beautiful thing of these are our strengths, but well, maybe because LJ and I both have individualization, we truly believe that they do take on their own, they work with the person, and it's nature nurture, that whole side of it. No two people are the same, even with the same strengths, because how they may show up shows up differently, but there's a theme, there is a common thread, right?
Yeah.
It's just, it may show up for them differently.
Absolutely.
So, love it. As we start to wind down, Augusta, I'm going to give you the second to last comment on what is it, whether it's a question you have for us or a comment you have about CliftonStrengths communication. Is there anything you want to end with? Big question, big statement. What do you have for us?
Oh gosh. No, I really loved what we were just talking about, because, when I look at LJ's, your top 5, you just immediately get this picture, this energy, and how that can compare to somebody who also has communication is the beauty of these talks and bringing people on like this, Amy. It allows people to see really how a strength shows up.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally in action. And even just when LJ starts talking about communication, right? He pops. He just physically pops.
I'm like, okay, let's go.
Let's talk about it.
LJ, what is the final word you'd like to share with the viewers today on communication? Whether it's understanding communication, you either have it or you live with somebody with communication, what would you want them to know?
Ooh. Well, maybe the thing is, maybe it's wise to ask someone who is familiar with it or has it within his top 5 strength. Is how would you describe this, or how can you help me craft my words?
Yes.
For somebody for instance, for somebody who is maybe a very good public speaker.
Yes.
You can ask him or her, please help me. I need to do this speaking gig. It's on this and this topic. Can you read this for me and then have some comments, please?
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Oh, but that's it within my realm. If it would be a white paper you have to write, ask somebody who is very good with the written word.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to ask, because that is going to bring them joy. This is like, that's like better than Christmas, right? You're like, ooh, a speech, ooh, white paper, right? Like, hot damn, let's go. Meanwhile, for the person that's actually going to give it, and I think for the person that's going to give it, they're like, oh, this is the last thing I want to do. Hopefully, you'll be able to work with somebody with communication to find the words that work for you so that you can show up and feel like you own it as well. And that's, again, in many ways, you show up almost as a maximizer as well, as sort of taking it to its next level. And so, I just want to point that out. Love it. Beautiful. Utilize your communication, folks. Absolutely. They are out there. Use them. And remember, again, it's not about talking too much. It's the art of the words. Some communicators have the simplest language. They don't use big words because they understand that simpler is better, less is more. And so it's not about the amount of words, but it's about the impact those words make on you. That's when you'll know you're in the room with a really great communicator. So with that being said, because we could keep going on for about an hour on this and come up with all the metaphors that we want on anything that we throw out, I thank you both for being here. Coach LJ, thank you as being our guest and bringing your energy to this, and to Augusta for always being a part of this. I thank you very much, and we will see you all in the next strength.
Thank you very much, Amy. Thank you, Augusta.
Bye, guys.